Natanya, welcome to Women Finding Clarity. Finally, I'm so excited to have you here.
Yay, Pascal. It is such a pleasure to dive in with you. And I just love that we are like basically neighbors, like we're in the same hood and at long last we're starting this incredible collaboration. So thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, thank you for being here. I have to share quickly before we go further is that, you and I met in a virtual kind of a mastermind program. And I'm at the gas station one day and I'm pumping gas, and this person just comes waving over at me, and I don't have my glasses on, right? And so I'm like, who? Like, I think at that point, I didn't even realize how close we actually lived. I
I
was literally like, what are you doing here?
yeah, I had a feeling that we were close and I saw that we had some mutual friends, but it was totally like meant to be that we were just pumping gas at the same time. I'm like, I know that person. It's Pascal. I'm gonna say hello. This is too good to pass up. So I love that.
Absolutely.
The great first meeting.
A great first meeting. And honestly, I'm never going to complain about being called too good to pass up. So thank you for that.
You are so welcome. Yeah, get used to it.
Yes, yes, yes. So, Natanya, there's just so much beauty and so much light that emanates from you. And I have to do what I always do with my guests is first, let's take a look back. And before we get talking about your beautiful business and your yoga and your enlightenment and all of it, let's talk about what brought you to this place in your life. How did you get here? And yes, I know it's a very big question.
Yeah, it's a very big question. I'm like, how much time do we have? Okay. Um, and thank you so much for asking. Like I'm already can feel like emotions coming up because it's been such an amazing journey. And I'm about to launch my first book. And actually, my book touches on a lot of these origin stories of why I am where I am now. But to sum it up, I was born and raised in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and when I was about 6 years old, I started learning yoga from my grandmother. My grandmother, my Oma, she's originally from Germany, survived World War II, survived cancer in her 30s. And one of the things that she discovered as she was navigating cancer, um, it was ovarian cancer, was yoga. Like her doctor was like, "Oh, you might try yoga as a way to help you navigate the stress of this." And this was like in the 50s. Yoga wasn't really prevalent in the West. And she had moved from Germany. She had immigrated from Germany to Canada. And what I kind of figured out later was that she basically taught herself from a book. She looked at poses and pranayama, the breathing, and taught herself. And when she would come to visit us in Massachusetts, I would hear her early in the morning waking up and starting to do her nadi shodhana, her alternate nostril breathing. And I would get really excited, like, oh, I'm almost up. And I would go down there and she would show me things. She'd show me breathing, she'd show me poses. And that really sparked a love in me from an early age of moving my body. I was really, into dance and gymnastics, and I always kind of came back to yoga over the years, but I didn't really get deep into it until um, in my early 20s. So I also had a big passion for theater and performing. And when I was a child, I did a lot of children's theater productions. And I kind of lost that as I got older. Oh, it's not like a good way to make money. It's not a good way to make a living. Like these are the things that I was hearing. So I took kind of a safer route in college studying English, and I went to teacher college. I got my master's in education, but I always had this passion for theater. And um, in that sort of period in my 20s, I started to feel like there was a part of me that was missing, that wasn't being expressed because I had kind of given up some of my movement stuff and my theater stuff to do something more practical, become a teacher. And I started to realize like I needed to get back to those things that lit me up. I kind of was in a place in my 20s where I was in a relationship that wasn't working, and I was not feeling good in my body. I was feeling heavy about the choice of becoming a teacher over following some of my other passions. And so I started to go to therapy finally. And through that therapy work, I was able to find a way to start getting back into my passion of performance and using my body. My therapist supported me to kind of work with my teaching schedule to create time where I could audition for things and start exploring the arts again. And so I kind of had this like awakening in my late 20s, early 30s, where I started to go part-time teaching and part-time performing and part-time auditioning for shows. And I explored jazz singing and auditioning for all kinds of things, improvisation groups and student films and, dinner theater shows. And at this time I was actually living in California in the San Francisco Bay Area. I had moved out there. And that was kind of like this new awareness came to me like, oh, this is a part of me that I've been shutting off. And it's the reason I'm not happy in my life. Like I'm not filling myself up with these things. And one of the things that started happening when I was doing plays and performing was that in the rehearsals, they'd bring in yoga. And I started to remember how much I loved yoga. And I started to realize how much yoga and all the practices really opened up your creativity and your inspiration and getting in touch and connecting with the other actors in the space. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I love this. Like I love this synthesis of art and spirituality. And basically after a couple years of part-time teaching and theater work, I made a big decision. I had a big awakening. I left my 8-year relationship that wasn't working. I left my teaching job and I moved to Europe for 2 years. And I started working as an ESL teacher and studying theater and performing. I lived in Barcelona, Spain. Um, I went to study theater in Paris and in Poland. I started working with master facilitators, and a lot of the work was about creating original theatrical work uh, based in classic texts, like Greek tragedies or even, classical texts from India or um, Italy. And I learned this whole process of collaborating with other artists to create an original performance piece. And it was definitely life-changing. During that time, yeah, I was just kind of footloose and free and traveling and really like waking up to another way of living life.
Yeah.
Um, And I went to go study at a very competitive Parisian theater school. And a lot of my book touches on these stories.
Yeah.
Uh, but that school ended up being a bit too competitive for me. Like it was like on this huge trajectory of like excitement and creation and collaboration and spirituality. And then I went to Paris and it was so full of intensity and criticism. And it was too much for me. Like I could feel my whole ego crumbling and my, like it was crushing. And
Yeah.
so I had to kind of make a choice, either I'm going to stick with this because I made a commitment, or I'm going to honor my mental and emotional health and like take what I got from this experience and leave. And so that's what I ended up doing. I only completed 1 year of that 2-year program. And I ended up moving back to America after that second year in Europe and kind of felt like, based on that experience in Paris, like I had no business being an artist, actually. And so I decided to go back to classroom teaching because I felt like I don't know what to do. Like I kind of hit this like, you know, I had been on this like high trajectory and I was like,
Yeah.
so it took a little while. I found my way back to teaching and I let that teaching opportunity that came forward for me in New York fund my capacity to go back to creating plays. And I actually ended up creating collaboratively a play about my grandmother,
Oh,
incorporating all of these practices that I learned on my journey, incorporating yoga and meditation. And while I was still teaching this was in New York City, by the way, I ended up spending a summer training in yoga and meditation in Thailand. And so that was like the other piece for me with, okay, now I have a collaborative theater company. I'm working with women artists. I'm creating a piece about using my grandmother's writings to me, you know, when I was younger and rooted in her story. There's a lot with that as well. But I got to incorporate yoga and meditation and breath work into the rehearsal process. And I got to like, yeah, experience the fruit of this journey. And that theater company I called the Clearing Collaborative Theater Company, named for the clearing, like a space in the woods where you could, you know, go see something, right, in the space. But also the process of creating cathartic, meaningful work, right, is an energetic clearing. And so I ran that company for a couple of years in New York. We did some off-Broadway performances. We were in, you know, a festival with that piece that we created about my grandmother called Homage. And there's actually a YouTube video of it somewhere.
oh.
Uh, and yeah, we got like third place in this theater festival. So it was really amazing and gratifying. And through all of that, I became, and after coming back from Southeast Asia too, I became very clear that I was no longer going to be a classroom teacher and that I really had to say goodbye to it. And so I did. I left my classroom teaching job. I kind of had like, you know, this really intense 2 subways and a bus commute to and from a job that I wasn't enjoying. And actually, during that time, I was listening to a lot of inspirational talks from Abraham Hicks and Marie Forleo and Michael Bernard Beckwith. Like I was filling myself up with all this inspiration to like cut the ties and do it.
Yeah.
And so I did. And I ended up um, leaving and going back to Southeast Asia and actually co-leading retreats in Thailand at the very place where I did my training a couple years earlier. So I ended up kind of living on the beach for a few months in Thailand, which was pretty good.
You're unbelievable. I just happened to end up living on the beach in Thailand for a couple of years.
And all right, I'm sorry. I know this is good. like like we're not done yet. Okay, well, don't worry. We're almost there. So during that time, I had actually come back to the States and I had ended up kind of running into my high school sweetheart a couple times. And he was coming to me in my meditations when I was in Southeast Asia. And I just had this like feeling like something was supposed to happen with him. And we actually saw each other before I went to Thailand to run these retreats for a few months. And I was like, you know, what if I come back here and he was living in our hometown, Plymouth? You know, what if I come back here and we kind of see how this is? You know, I'm going to Thailand for a few months, but I'll be back and let's see. And he was like, well, that could be cool. I think he had like big doubts that that I was actually gonna come back. Um, but I did. And I came back in February, which was probably bad planning. But I was also like, I know I'm ready to work for myself. I just don't know what that's going to be. And I know I want to bring in spirituality and community and collaboration. And I know that I need to be with this man for some reason, right? Like I have this call, right? And so within a couple months of me coming back to Massachusetts, I found a studio space in Buzzards Bay through my now husband's mom. And I opened up my studio at the clearing. So I ran that studio for 5 years. And then COVID happened and everything got rearranged and my lease was up. So I started running everything virtually. And now I'm, offering kind of virtual offerings, virtual coaching, empowerment coaching. I run trainings out of a stunning seaside studio space and onset and classes that actually one of my clients ended up building for us during COVID, during the community. Yeah. And I host international retreats at least once a year and sometimes local ones as well, day retreats, and all the things.
And all the things. Sister, you are the real deal. Like, you're not just pretending. You're not just like, you've lived it, you've done it, you've worked through it, right? And so I think you're just such a beautiful example of trusting the process.
Mm-hmm.
And the process being your PhD in life. Like, you literally have moved through each part and said, okay, this is what I feel like is next for me. Let me take this step. And you did. And so once that step was complete, you're like, okay, what's the next step? And the awakening that you had in your 20s. Okay, first of all, let me just rewind a little bit. Um, I need to know before I forget, did your Oma, is that what you called her?
Yeah, Oma is German for grandmother.
Did she get to see your screenplay?
I did show her a video of the recording of the show. And she, at that time, like her memory was going and she couldn't really like follow what was going on, but there were these moments and these songs that I incorporated into the piece that she had taught me, like German school songs and things. And she would like sing along or nod her head in familiarity about certain moments in the piece. Um,
What a
so
blessing.
yeah, it was amazing. I took like a photo of her watching it. But I think I remember her also saying, like, I can't really keep track of it. I was like, yeah. I mean, it was also, it was a little bit of an experimental piece. And the entire script were her words. Because during that period when I was kind of lost about, wanting to be an artist and also doing this teacher thing, I started writing letters to her and we had this correspondence. And she's such a beautiful writer. Um, the artist and I kind of like pulled words from the text to create a script, basically. So she was basically the playwright.
That's just beautiful. I am so happy that she got to see it and that you saw that fruition with her. And even if she wasn't at a point in her mental capacity where she could really grasp it, it doesn't matter. Like, you saw the moments of clarity that she had, and just, I mean, so beautiful to watch it come full circle.
Yeah, it was deeply that whole experience was one of the most gratifying experience of my whole life for sure. And I hope one day to actually do it again.
Yeah. There's so many things that I feel like you and I are connected energetically with. And, my grandmother was a war bride from France. And so she came to the United States, not able to speak the language, not any of it. And she passed away 3 months or 4 months, I think, before her 100th birthday. So it's only been 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the lessons. And when she passed away, immediately what got me was there are no more stories,
Mm,
right? Because we learned so much about life and about her and about our family and all of the things through her stories and
mm,
through her experience. And she
mm.
did write a book, and it's called A Curse Called War. And my brother had it published for her 90th birthday. And so, like, when you're talking about your grandmother's story and how it became this living work of art, it just feels in so much resonance with that.
Mm.
And I have to say, I can't believe that she had ovarian cancer in the 50s and survived that.
Yeah, yeah.
My mom had ovarian cancer in 2012. She was diagnosed and she passed away in, excuse me, in 2014. And
So,
so, I mean, again, like this energetic connection, this
mm,
serendipitous, these conversations that we have, we
mm,
don't have these by accident, right?
yeah.
We're connected to the people in life that we're connected to for all of these different reasons. And it's truly a tapestry that becomes interwoven. And so I just needed to point those things out because as you were speaking, I'm like, ping, there's another thing, ping, there's another thing.
Wow. No wonder we ran into each other.
I know, right? Right. So, this awakening, back to it in your 20s, what I was picturing as you were talking about it is when we're having a spiritual awakening, we're raising our vibration, right? And when that happens, we will start to notice that things and people who aren't vibrating at that higher level do start to fall away.
Yeah.
And that's a really important part of the process is allowing that to happen. So, like, you released your heavy relationship,
Mhm.
and that's just one example, but being able to release those things in a loving and compassionate way helped you move on to the next part of what has been your journey.
Absolutely. And I think it's such a fascinating um, experience that happens because truly that was a big awakening for me at that time. I definitely had spent a lot of my time in a space of feeling unworthy and not enough. And so I was kind of caught up in a cycle of addiction with this person who really couldn't love me the way I needed to be loved. But I was so fixated on making it work. I was like in this hamster wheel. And then the moment that I started to give myself what I truly needed, all the inspiration and conversations and being around new artists, I was like, oh, what's going on over here is just distracting me from my purpose and my work. And the more I say yes to this, the easier it is for me to let go. Like it was unbelievable how something that had been such a focus of mine for so long was just like, oh, I don't need that.
Yeah.
Goodbye. And
And that is a really important point that I want to highlight. What you just said, the more I say yes to this, the more I say yes to my creativity, to feeding my soul, to leaning into what my needs and desires are, the more I realize I didn't need that.
that's right.
Yeah. And as you were talking about all of that, all I'm thinking is we are creative beings. We're here to create. It's what we do. We are spirits in a physical world. But anytime we're feeling lost, anytime we're feeling that disconnection, it's tapping back into that sacral chakra, that creativity, that aliveness. That's what's going to bring us back.
Hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Continuing to come back into that space of what's my why, and I think one of the things I continue to notice on this journey that I call like a soul-led journey is giving yourself that time to listen, to keep listening to where it is you want to go next because the growing and the evolution, right? And the desire the things that pull you forward don't stop. But sometimes when we're like in the momentum or when we're in our lives, we're not always available to listen. So it's like finding those spaces to be in meditation or deepen your breath or be in community with others who are on a journey of growth and evolution too, right? To keep you in that space of deeply listening, and sort of honoring like who I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and what inspired me then is different than who I am now. And I have to keep being open and available, right? Like, show me what's next. Show me the way.
Yeah. That's beautiful and trusting. And
Yeah.
that is what I feel like is really coming out of all the beautiful words that you're saying is that you are trusting your soul to lead the way.
Yeah. And it's, can I curse?
Hell yeah.
And it's fucking scary. Like it's like you feel what wants to happen next and you take action, you start taking those steps, but there's a part of this soul-led life you don't know. Like and the truth is none of us know anything, but I think in some of these other more prescribed ways of living, like, get a job, work your 9 to 5, like get married, have the kids, like when you kind of live, yeah, when you kind of live a life that you're told, like, this is what you do, this is how it is, right? As opposed to being in that practice of following your soul and just kind of like letting it unfold.
Yeah.
There's that set prescribed way of doing it that there's something safe about that, right? And it feels like, okay, I know what's going to happen next because I signed up for that. And I want that predictability because it feels good. Um, but then, as I'm sure you know, because I saw your finger up there, like when you kind of have those awakenings, you're like, well, wait a minute, nothing's sure, nothing's set, as much as I signed up for this safe route, it's actually like a white knuckle ride as well, and so for me, it was like I really had to keep letting go of doing what everyone was telling me to do, which was like, get a job and get your pension. And I had to just be like, no, there's something else. There's something else calling me, and I have to go this way. And I I don't know how it's going to turn out, but like this is what's calling me, and I can't do it a different way. I just can't.
Yeah. I just can't.
Yeah.
And, so the reason that this is all resonating is I got married not long out of high school and then I promptly got divorced because we were breaking up probably. And then we were like, you know what? Let's just get married. That'll fix everything.
Yeah.
Well, we were young and we were dumb. And exactly what you just said is, but this is what I know. And, all the things. And so I don't make any of that right or wrong. It is what it was. And I learned a lot of lessons from that. Right. And then moving forward, I met my now husband and we got married and I wasn't supposed to have any children, but guess what? That wasn't my story. And I had three. And so I was a stay home mom for those children. That's all I wanted to do. And I thought that that was my purpose, my one and only. And then didn't I get a divine download that said, nope, this is also your purpose. And then I moved into healing and then I moved into energy work. So what I hear you say and what I know from my own experience is we don't necessarily only have one purpose.
Mhm.
And there's a way to live all of the purposes. We just listen and integrate and we bring it all together. How does that feel for you when I kind of wrap it up like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said earlier, it really is about trust. It's like, I hear the call. I don't know what it means, but I'm going to take this first step and see how it unfolds, and that trust that I'm taking myself somewhere good.
Yes. Yes. And listening to that divine wisdom and those downloads when you get them, and knowing they're for a purpose. And maybe you don't have all the answers. You get the download and you feel that you're
Yep.
supposed to take a step. Part of trusting is being unsure what that next step is going to look like, but
Yep.
being willing to lean into, if nothing else, I know there is another step. So let me be open to finding out what that looks like.
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, even like following your intuition and your soul to this other choice or this other decision, and then in that moment maybe it feels like a mistake or like you made a bad choice, but usually, right, there's this other level of knowing, right, that the soul is actually taking you to this place so that you can learn a hard lesson, or you can like see how resilient you are, or so that later on you pass another challenge in a different way, right? Like it's like we have to keep going and following the breadcrumbs. Even the things that feel like a challenge or a mistake in the moment is actually like blessing us later on.
Yeah. I think as you were talking about it, I'm picturing a labyrinth, and that's what we're doing, right? We're just following the labyrinth around because that's bringing us closer and closer and closer. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
So I want to switch gears a little bit because you're so much more and you offer so much more even than what we've already talked about. And I know you recently were on a retreat, I think Costa Rica, maybe?
This year I actually took a group to Bali.
Bali. Okay. So let's talk about how you actually work with people. Because, I mean, so much spiritual wisdom, yoga, retreats. Like, what does working with Natanya look like?
Amazing question. So yeah, what I offer clients is what I call the soul-led entrepreneur accelerator system. And in that container, which is about 9 months, sometimes a little longer, depending on what clients' needs and interests are. Inside of that container, I offer up business mentorship and coaching, empowerment coaching, worthiness coaching, along with a facilitator training. And that facilitator training could be a 200-hour yoga teacher training, or maybe you're already certified in yoga, or maybe you're already a wellness practitioner, and you want to learn how to host and run retreats of your own, or transformational events, or day workshops. And I take you through a step-by-step process of how to organize and how to plan and how to sell your transformational event, and how to facilitate and hold that space. So I offer up coaching, I offer up a facilitator training, and I offer up a retreat immersion. Usually it's an international retreat. Typically, I go to Costa Rica. I've taken groups to Thailand. I actually got to take a group back to where I first got certified in yoga, which was a dream come true. Um, and this just a couple months ago, I took a group to Bali, which is another place where I got to study yoga and meditation in the past. And it's just a really powerful, prayer-filled environment. So that was incredible and deeply transformational. So a lot of my clients, when they sign up to work with me, they sign up for this transformational experience of receiving support so that they can really name and claim what they truly want for themselves in their lives. And for me, this is honestly the journey that I needed when I was a burnt out classroom teacher in my 20s and 30s. I needed someone to take me by the hand and say, look, you deserve this and you can do it. And here are the steps. And so I've designed a one-to-one coaching program that supports my clients to really claim their self-worth, to really start to get clear about the steps and strategies if they want to leave their current relationship or their current work situation, or if they're really just longing to connect with their soul, connect with their purpose, right? They're not feeling excited or lit up in their lives, and they know that there's something else tapping them on the shoulder, but they're not quite sure what it is. I support them to start to get more and more clarity around who they are and what they want in this lifetime and how they want to show up in service. And
Mm.
then they come into a facilitator training with me, whichever one they choose. They can always add on the other one later. And then we do a deep dive on a retreat immersion. So they really get to fill themselves up with, daily practice, daily teachings with me, daily, heart opening, ecstatic dance and breath work and yoga and meditation, but also like being out in nature and connecting with the community wherever we are. And a lot of times, clients will come in for one thing, like they'll be like, oh, I'm just here for the facilitator training. They're like, oh, actually, like I do want, the business coaching, and wait, oh, I want to go on this retreat with you. Because it's like, because it truly is, the whole experience really does change you fundamentally. I have some clients who just come in and they do my retreat every year. I have some clients who started coaching with me, then they did the facilitator training, and they've done like 4 retreats with me. You know what I mean? Like, so you can really expand the journey, or do it more a la carte in a way that serves you and what you're longing to receive.
Yeah.
But for me and my experience and my transformation, all of these pieces feel absolutely essential for sustainable growth.
Yeah. It feels like such a beautiful journey. It feels like it's a beautiful container of healing and awakening and uplifting and expansion. I mean, listening to you talk about it, I'm like, okay, I'm in. Sign me up. Right? Because it feels like that safe place that we all need at some point in our lives to go and rest and receive and recover and rejuvenate. Right? And that's how your whole system feels to me.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's actually something I talk about a lot in the container, is this reminder, you're here to receive. And so often in our daily lives, we don't give ourselves permission to not be managing something, right? Or not being plugged into something, right? We're constantly in this space of problem solving. And what ends up happening, right, is our attention is split, and we get overstimulated and burned out. And so, especially in my group experiences, when we do the trainings and the retreat immersions, I always say to my clients, this is your time for you. So if you begin to notice yourself wanting to fix what's coming up for this other person in the group, or if you start to notice yourself wanting to distract yourself from what's happening here now on your phone, I just want to normalize that you and your body and your nervous system are not used to giving yourself time just to receive. And I'm here to remind you that there is nothing for you to plan or fix or solve in this space.
Mhm.
You came here, you signed up to receive, and you signed up to fuel yourself and fill up with prana and inspiration. And when you start to notice yourself wanting to distract you from that, I'm here to remind you why you're here.
So needed. So needed, especially healers. And I say especially, it's everyone, but healers, we always feel like we have to be in service. But I think an important part of being in service is remembering to also be in service of yourself and, providing yourself with opportunities to release everything else and only receive. And we do need those gentle reminders. And your energy is so powerful. And yet, it is received so gently in that you're just offering a reminder. You're just, giving the nudge. You're just giving them permission to give themselves permission. And that is, I think, what is so powerful about you is the gentle way in which you approach all of it.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much. I think one of the things that I've been really lucky to learn, I've had so many years now of facilitating retreats and trainings and supporting other facilitators in virtual containers and in person. And for me, what I'm truly supporting clients to do is to honor themselves and to drop the people pleasing, create clear boundaries and feel free. Like this is part of like one of my mantras here is like, you know, you're not here to fix anything for anyone else. You're not here to abandon who you are and what you want for the good of a group. Like the era of self-diminishment and self-abandonment is over. It ends now with you, right? And what are the ways that you can support yourself to feel free? And one of the things I actually did in my last retreat in Bali at the beginning, like we had at the beginning and the end, we always have like a big like dance party, like welcoming into the space dance party and like closing dance party. And at the beginning, I I really empowered the group, you know, there's an itinerary here of all the things we're doing this week. And first and foremost, this retreat is about you honoring you. So if there's a day energetically where you're not up for X, Y, and Z that we're doing as a group, you honor you. Like, I love you. And just because you don't show up for my yoga class, I'm not going to make it mean anything other than you are in the practice of honoring you. And that's
Beautiful.
and I think it's fascinating as for me too, as a former classroom teacher, it's fascinating working with adults who are kind of used to sort of the teacher being like in charge and like holding people to a certain thing. And
Yeah.
then the teacher being like, this is the lesson is you're in the driver's seat. The lesson is you're the guru, and I'm here to invite you to wake up to that.
Hmm. I just have to take a breath for just a second because it's beautiful and it's the life that we all deserve. We're our own guru. And, you know, having someone offer us the space and the container to give ourselves permission to follow ourselves. That's beautiful. And I want to point out that, you live by and you lead by Feel Free. And that's the name of your book.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up, Pascal. So after, through the pandemic, my business, The Clearing, I kind of like I did a whole rebrand. And because I started to talk to my clients about what it is that they feel like they get from me or why they're drawn to working with me. And what I heard time and again was, oh, well, it feels like you're free. You feel free to live your life the way you want to live it. And like, that's what I want. And like, I kept hearing that. And I was like, okay, this is it. So I actually found out that there was like a Feel Free Academy somewhere. And so my new business is Feel Free Institute LLC. And all of my offerings are under this feel free umbrella because truly at the end of the day, like we want to feel free to be ourselves. We want to feel free to stand in our confidence and in our power and say, this is a yes for me, this is a no for me, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm just going to go. And so my yoga teacher training is Feel Free YTT. My retreat immersions, Feel Free Costa Rica, Feel Free Bali. It's like let's go and feel free. And so my book, Feel Free, this is my proof copy, my soon to be legit real copy is coming in just a short
It's
couple.
gorgeous for anybody who's just listening to audio. You have to Google it and look it up because it's absolutely stunning.
Oh, thank you so much. Um, it's been a journey in and of itself, right? Like a spiritual initiation. And um the book Feel Free is it's part memoir. Each chapter I share a story or a couple stories from my life and the teachings that I received from those experiences. And then at the end of each chapter, there's a feel free activation, which is a coaching tool or a process or a practice that I invite you to engage in. So when you get the book, there's a complimentary downloadable playbook for you so that you can journal in and respond to each of the activations at the end of each chapter. And so it shares the stories about my grandmother and my play and some near-death experiences I've had and some other things that I we don't have the time to get into. Um, but yeah, part memoir, part coaching, teaching tool, and really my hope for anyone who gets this book is for them to begin to feel into how they can listen to, as you said, the PhD of their life experience and know and trust that they have that specific soul-led life and they have that specific um, code or codes that are only theirs, that they get to really stand in the power of and say, you know, I crossed that threshold and I came out the other side, and these are my teachings. And I feel free and confident to share those teachings with you because who I am and what I want and what I have to say has meaning. And I'm going to keep raising my voice and being in that practice of raising my voice and my visibility to inspire others to do the same.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's essentially, you know, feel free to show up. And I just have to share too, like the process of writing this book has been so confronting because it's like I'm putting down on paper all of these things that I've had deep inside of me for so long. And it's like as I'm writing the book, I'm actually talking to myself. I'm coaching myself to finish the book, to feel free, to put the book out there and let go of my own judgments, because the truth is like our inner critic and all of these habits that we have inside of us actually slow down our capacity to just do the damn thing. And
Yeah.
so my hope is that this book invites more people to to feel free to do the damn thing.
Feel free to do the damn thing. I love it so much. I love it so much. So I could talk to you all day, and I know that we really do need to wrap it up. And so I know that after this conversation, everyone's like, no, 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 I don't want the conversation to end, or I want to be part of the conversation. So, how can anyone who would like to get in contact with you find you?
Well, thank you so much, Pascal, for all your time and curiosity. And thank you so much to your audience for listening and for being a part of this conversation. It's really an honor to be here. And if you want to learn more about my soul-led entrepreneur accelerator system, or you want to join me in Costa Rica in March 2025, or you want to experience my Feel Free 200-hour yoga teacher training, or you want to get your copy of this book coming out in July, Feel Free Lessons of a Soul-Led Life, you can find me on Instagram at Natanya Ruth, and you could also find me on my link tree, and I'll be sharing that link with Pascal so she can have all my offerings available to you all in one big shebang. And if you want to speak with me and find out more about how to live your soul-led life, you could also book a soul purpose strategy session with me at www.natanyaruth.com/contact. So
Beautiful. Feel free to book that session.
yeah.
So, I know that there was something that you wanted to offer special for listeners. And what is that?
Yes. So there's a promo code and I can't think of what it is right now. But I'm offering all of your listeners $10 off my book, Feel Free Lessons of a Soul-Led Life. And Pascal will have that booking link for you. And so you'll get my book as well as the downloadable complimentary playbook for just $10 with that $10 discount. And I'm also offering your listeners $500 off with promo code FEELFREE500 for my upcoming Costa Rica retreat, Feel Free Costa Rica, The Abundant Life retreat. That's happening March 17th through the 24th, 2025. And that is going to be an unforgettable experience featuring sunrise meditation and your own ocean view room in the jungle and stand-up paddleboard yoga and going to see sloths and monkeys and so much more.
It
So
just sounds like heaven. It really does. I mean, all of it. Like I'm on board for all of it. So I'm going to put your link tree in show notes and I'll have those promo codes for everyone to take full advantage. And I just know they're going to because your light is just so attracting, right? Like I feel the magnetism of the beauty of Natanya Ruth. And I just know that everyone's going to feel exactly the same way when they listen to this conversation.
oh,
Thank you for being here. Thank you for bringing all your beauty, all your light, all your wisdom. And I can't wait to have you back again.
so looking forward to it, Pascal. Thank you for this amazing conversation and opportunity. Lots of love.